Hello. Let's talk about the Expanse. Refining gameplay is something we only do in space stations right now, and it takes hours to do. But just like with, well, I guess basically just medical gameplay, we don't really have that many examples of this, but generally the idea behind refining in this game is supposed to be that if you do it in a station, it's going to take a while because it's a public service and somebody else is doing the work for you and you have to line up and all that kind of stuff. If you do it in a ship, though, it's supposed to be something you can kind of do in a session, sort of like you're doing when you're mining. You spend like 10 minutes refining a certain amount of stuff and then you're done. Similar to refueling on the Starfarer. So it is interesting to think about what a refining ship could be in this game and how it could work in multi-ship coordination in the industrial environment. It's hard to think about because they've stopped on feature development, but they have worked on this stuff before. In fact, if you go back to the monthly report in 2023 on March, ship refinery work had begun. The design intentions were brought up to speed to allow the engineers to start work in the next sprint. Now, as is sometimes the case, this is literally the only mention of ship refining we've ever seen, and nothing since then. Not a mention of this, not a mention of the ship that everybody expected it to launch with, the Expanse. I think actually if you watched my previous video talking about how they diverted funds from Star Citizen over to Squadron, that was a financial report about 2023, around mid-2023. And if you look at the timing of this, well, this is March of 2023. So refining gameplay could very much have been caught up in that funding withdrawal from Star Citizen and put on the back burner for a while. I'm almost certain that it did, along with several other things that were related to gameplay. I mean, this is the kind of thing that you probably want to come in after engineering, right? So it's unfortunate to see, but I'm going to take you through a little looky look at what the Expanse is supposed to be. It's a one-person ship, 35 meters long. Honestly, I think it looks bigger than it is, because 35 meters is really not that big. It's 10 meters tall and 21 meters wide. So it's got some size to it, but honestly, it's a one-person ship. They call it a one-person ship. I guess it's because it's got one bed, but I think, honestly, I could see you doing a two-person job with this. It does have a defensive turret on it, I believe, so you might want that anyway. It's also got a tractor beam. So, I mean, you've got a reason to have multiple people on the ship, but they call it one crew max, probably because it got one bed. Now, we haven't gotten that much information about this. What I can tell you, though, it's got reactors on board. It has 6 dedicated reactors, which can process different refining actions at the same time. So basically, you have somebody who, I believe this can refine ore. It is designed to process frontline raw ore and then either transfer to a dedicated cargo ship or sell the refined ore itself. So some ships will refine gas, some ships will refine ore. This is the kind that you're mostly going to have with like a prospector refining the ores right on the spot. So you don't have to take it to a station and then sell it. You just mine it, pass it to your friend, he refines it, pass it to the cargo hauler, they take it to the station, you guys sell it for more profit because you refined it and you did it quick. You can probably make really good money if you can combine the ships well and get efficient with your team doing this. They also have some cargo pod mounts, 64 SCU worth. So when you do need to, you can have the prospector drop off the bags for you and store them. You see there's a little tractor beam situation in the back here that grabs these mining pods and pulls the ore out into the refinery. You can see that here in the back, and a prospector right next to it, transferring the bags over. That gives you a good idea of the size. It looks large, but next to a prospector, it's almost like around half the size, I would think. See, this picture makes it look big too, because the prospector is closer in the perspective. It's got the integrated tractor beam we talked about, and 2 size 1 pilot controlled weapons. You know, whenever you need to go into a fight. I love how it's 2 size 1 pilot controlled weapons offer protection when refining in the field. Wouldn't you want a turret to offer protection while you're refining? You don't want to be like flying around doing all this stuff using your thrusters. You want to put power to shields, power to weapons, keep that refining going. I don't know if you like to refine in difficult situations, maybe. Here's a little bit of trivia. We all know the Expanse game, but it looks like the authors, James S.A. Corey, of the Expanse books, we're looking into Star Citizen. I'm very curious if they will manage to actually deliver on the promise of Star Citizen. That is very much I'm not super sure about this, but I hope they can do it kind of sentence. The demos they keep putting out look amazing, and I mean, already have a crew that will let me fly with them if the time comes. I'd love to jump in an engineering bay during a battle. So say we all, sir. Let's look at what CIG had to say about the ship when they first revealed the concept.
We've got quite a few ships already in the MISC manufacturer lineup. You have the Prospector, you have the Starfarer, Hull series, but we wanted to have dedicated entry-level ship into the refining gameplay career for ship owners.
Guarantee we're going to get a different ship
MISC
to
Expanse
introduce refining when it comes, because that's the style.
Fills a great hole in the gameplay loop of the entire mining refining cycle, because currently you go out to the far reaches of space, you mine some rocks, you fill up your capacity, then you yourself have to trek all the way back to a grain station or somewhere like that to refine.
Yeah, deep space mining is annoying for that reason.
And then you have to trek all the way back to go continue mining, whereas Expanse can be the middleman where you take on board mined goods, you process it, and then you can either sell it yourself or you can transfer it back to a cargo ship and they complete the whole gameplay loop.
Dude, there are people I know probably watching this. We're like foaming at the mouth at that possibility. That's what I want to do. Imagine if we had the Expanse for this whole gameplay event that we're doing right now, the Resource Rush. And if you refined the goods first, you'd get so much more credits. Imagine how valuable the Expanse would be.
The Expanse is the starter ship in the sort of refinery tier. We have refineries on other ships such as the Starfarer, but they're more specialized into purely doing fuel, where the Expanse has a bonus over them. Is it has what we call reactors on them, and at a very simplistic level, one reactor is one refinery process, and the Expanse has 6 of them on board, so it allows you to potentially do 6 entirely different refinery processes simultaneously, or
whole bunch of reacting
output, you can do 6 of all the same type and really sort of improve your bandwidth, so to speak, of refinery. We picked MISC because it sort of fits that industrial aesthetic. You've got the rounded front nose of the ship, but then what you'll notice is you've got the not massive, but you've got the big shoulders, and that's also on the Starfarer.
Man, Paul Jones was a big loss for this company. Bummed that he left.
And so we wanted to keep that, so it's sort of basically big airflow, big intakes, straight to an engine, and then back out. When people look at the back, there are certain visual.
I don't know. It's weird to design this ship with such such a big focus on air cooling. It does not seem like this is the kind of ship that's going to go in atmosphere very often.
Elements there that you'll see that are common throughout the ship manufacturers. You know, it's a sort of the ball engine almost, a very sort of defined fins that
hey, look, it's an atmosphere.
That spherical engine. And also, the other sort of main feature is the 8 pods. There are 4 on either side. It really gives this ship a unique look and silhouette. And there's no mistaking this ship. People might be familiar already with sort of MISC interiors are generally sort of a letterbox kind of viewpoint. You know, it's very widescreen. You know.
People salty about that one. MISC views for the life.
So you've got that basically when you're sat in the pilot seat. You've got all your instrumentation laid out in front of you. It's all quite sleek, holographic. It's still sort of quite compact because it is a one-man ship.
There's a couple more windows in there, though.
Leading from the cockpit, it will take you into just a small living section. You know, so bed, locker, that kind of stuff. And then progressing to the rear of the ship is just a really small sort of like operations room, basically, where you can interface with the refinery section. And there's a little window there, and you can sort of see through into the gubbins, and you'll have a little bit of a display that you'll be able to do some of your interaction with. Lasers? It's
gonna be beams? Beam refining?
Split level, so
makes sense, actually.
To
to get out of the ship, basically you'll enter into a really sort of compact and bijou lift, or an elevator, as some people say. That'll take you down to the lower floor. Jared, you might want to call it the ground floor. And then outside down a ramp, basically. So yeah, quite small. I mean, I think the ship is going to be kind of cool. I mean, obviously it's a niche role and it's not going to appeal to every player, but I think as a ship and as an owner, I think people are really going to like it. I think they're probably going to sort of really start to gel with it. It's got a lot of personality, I would say, and I hope that people will enjoy what it does, but B, will also sort of enjoy the visuals of the ship and just flying around in it and just having that sort of one-man support experience.
What the game's all about right now. Find the ship you like and fly around in it. We've also got a Q&A that answers a couple questions about this. We'll scroll through and see if there are any truly interesting ones. Here we say, what are the benefits of a refinery ship versus a space-based refinery situation? This is what I was talking about before. So, most obvious benefit is that you are refining on site, meaning you won't have to make long trips. Another benefit is it's planned to take less time than in the station since you have full control of the process. You'll also be unaffected by the station's occupancy level. How long will refining take? It's a relatively fast skill-based process. If you know the material that you want to refine and you know how to properly process it, you should be much faster than big refineries. I hope it's legitimately like you sit in there and you're like superheating rock and melting off parts of it that aren't needed, and there's like a meter maybe that tells you when you're reaching the zone where, okay, you're melting off this kind of element, but if you go a little higher, you can melt off multiple types of element, but then it's unstable and you can see the rocks inside the refinery doing that stuff. I know that's asking for a lot, but refining as a process, I think, opens them up to some very cool looking effects and stuff they could do with this. I hope they lean into it. It cannot put raw quantanium inside of it. They ask, will there be a mini game for refining like we have with other professions? They said we don't want to call it a mini game since the mechanic will be more complex than that, but we have a general idea of what we'd like player refining process to look like. This isn't final and is subject to change, but currently the idea is first you'll put the refining sack from the delivery or mining ship with the tractor beam into the intake socket. Then you'll analyze the materials. Based on your findings, you must decide which refining process you want to use. You'll either pick a predetermined method or the manual approach, which has you directly interacting with the material through interactions like grinding, melting, dissolving, and more. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Our goal here is to allow you to decide on how much effort you want to put in, so you could take the easy way out and pick a well-known method, or you could come up with your own refining recipe. Dude, if you guys can fulfill that, that would be great. I think they've also talked about like catalysts that you'll have to craft for this process. Refining process is an active profession. You can't store the ship while you're doing it. Current aim is to have every raw or unrefined material be refinable, so all minerals, gases, and metals, including scrap. Okay. Wow. Okay, so you're getting gases from this? You can also get metals from salvage, which means maybe this is the kind of thing that they want to wait until they have all of the materials actually figured out in terms of like crafting and maelstrom and stuff. I did not realize you'd be able to refine salvaged goods using this. That's going to be cool. The Expanse is planned to refine the vast majority of output from the vehicles above. That's the Argo Mole, Grey Cat Rock, and Drake Vulture. So it shouldn't matter where the unrefined material comes from as long as the setup of the refinery matches the materials refining requirement. That means that they're going to have to redesign this, because this is based entirely on the MISC Argo pods, or the MISC mining pods that the Argo Mole uses, but the Grey Cat Rock does not use this. The Drake Golem does not use these. So there might be a redesign in this ship's future. Will refining require consumables? Refining will likely require some use of power, catalysts, and other reagents. We plan to have your refinery be able to craft catalysts and reagents if you have the proper materials on hand. So heavily linked into engineering and crafting. And this is why like engineering is not just about getting shot at or like randomly getting glitches because you fly fast. They're also the industrial ships that are going to have a lot of moving parts that need to be taken into account. Yeah, so they will require power from the ship's power plant, and it might impact your ship's energy balance if you want to run high energy processes in your reactor. Here's a question about them reusing the same container as was used when it delivered the goods. They say, yes, we plan to allow players to reuse the sacks that the raw materials were brought in and refill them with refined materials. So this could literally be just like a station, a stationary ship, your own space refinery station. The prospector delivers you a sack of unrefined materials, which you successfully attach to your expanse. You can then either move the contents directly to your reactor or store it in one of the sacks on the side of the expanse to refine later. If you directly refine the material, you can move them back to the original sack. However, you'll first have to rinse the sack to prevent the refined materials from picking up impurities. How do you rinse it? There's a little water hose you stick in there. Total cargo capacity, 64 SCU. 8 pods compressed above them, which is another 64 SCU, so 128 SCU of total, is a system being planned to allow players to charge for ore processing, like when refueling from another player's Starfarer. Yes, we plan to have selling and purchasing systems where players are able to sell their unrefined material to the Expanse, which will then be refined and sold to someone else. It will also allow you to add a fee for the refining. This is something that we expect with all of these industrial professions: mining, refueling, refining, cargo transportation. All these things are expected to dig in to the beacon system that they showed us last year at CitizenCon. So all of this, these transport beacons, repair beacons, your reputation from medical to delivery to repair to refuel, these are the kinds of things where you will be able to put out a beacon, tell somebody that they can come and give you the refining stuff, you buy it from them, and then you figure out your business. It's a more sandbox focused gameplay, and I'm really excited for it. This is my bread and butter, what I'm looking forward to in this game. Not specifically refining, but just being able to offer or receive services from others in a game that is just all about space stuff. It's exciting. So yeah, that's what I have on the Expanse, folks. I'm excited for this ship. I hope you are, but I don't have any updates on where it is. They're not working on it. I tell you that much. Features are not the focus right now. So we'll check back in on this next year. Hopefully there will be any sort of a clue as to what's going on with this ship. But as of right now, there's nothing really to look forward to. I just wanted to give you guys a little insight into another ship I'm excited for this game. Thanks for checking this one out. See you in the next one.